So we're going to be working on a hugely popular project today. Since I put this pattern on my website, the Ellis Storage Bag pattern has been flying off my website. Hundreds of you have been making this bag. It's suitable for so many different things, as you can see in these pictures, and it's also compatible with the IKEA score disc pegboard range. So if you don't already have your pattern, hop over to the website using the link, grab that, and we're going to get straight into the tutorial. But before we do, I would really like to ask you to please consider liking this video, and if you've got a Sew pal, share it. This kind of thing really just tells YouTube that I'm creating something that you find of value, and then it will start to find other people who might find this of value as well. It also really shows your support for me as a small business, and I really can't tell you how much I appreciate that, and the hundreds of downloads that this project, this pattern has garnered in the last few weeks. So let's get right into the tutorial. So now you've got your exterior, lining and some non-woven interfacing. We're going to attach the interfacing to the wrong side of the exterior piece. Make sure it's the shiny piece against the wrong side of the exterior. Make sure to follow your manufacturer's instructions depending on which interfacing you're using, but regardless, I would always recommend using a pressing cloth because it really can protect your iron and whatever you're pressing on. We can just check whether it's adhered by going around the edges, and that looks fine to me. So the next step is to fold this piece in half, right sides together, so that the short ends meet. We can clip that in place. We're going to use, through this tutorial, it's always 2.5mm stitch length and 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around, and we're going to sew down here, stop 1/4 inch before we reach the bottom, pivot and come across this way to the end of this side crease here. So I've noticed I've got a little bit of an overhang of interlining here. It's making it quite difficult to do the next step, so I'm going to get that flush with the exterior fabric, so that's going to be much easier to do now, because what we want to do is draw a line 1 3/4 inch up from the bottom edge on both sides. And then we want to make a little finger crease along that edge, and then where the two lines meet, make a line on that vertical crease. Then we're going to box our corners by, let's start on this seam. We want the side seam to lie flush and aligned with the bottom seam. So we open up the corners, get in there to go right up to the point of that triangle, and you can just feel around a little bit and get in there. I like to open up my seams because it does help the bag lay a little bit flatter. And then when you've got them in place, you might want to clip or pin them. I think that is quite a good idea. Stops them slipping when you're sewing. Okay, and then we do exactly the same on the other side. There's no stitch line here, but we can use this line and the crease that we made. Get a nice little triangle there. Clip in place again. And we sew down directly on the line again. All right, now those two lines that you've just sewn, we want to make that into a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, like so, both sides. And that is the exterior piece done. So I'm going to repeat the same with the lining, but with no interfacing attached to this one. So that's the lining done now. I'm going to bring in the exterior, and I'm going to leave the exterior as it is, but turn the lining right side out. I'm going to put it inside the exterior and line up these two side seams. I'm going to pin those together. Ow. And then just pull across, give it a nice little straighten out and wiggle, and pin the opposite side. Just going to put a couple more in. Over the other side too. So we're all pinned in place, and we're going to sew around the top now, but we need to leave a little gap. I'm going to leave mine at the side of the bag. The seam is the back. I'm going to leave my gap at the side, about 3.5, something along that, because I always forget. And when we finish these, we can top stitch around, or we can hand stitch with an invisible stitch. I plan to put another tutorial up for that, so look out for it. Hit the bell if you want a notification. But if you do plan on hand stitching, I would avoid leaving a gap across these side seams, because it just makes your life a little bit more difficult. Right, so we start sewing at the end of the marking, go all the way around to here, back stitching at the beginning and end, so it reinforces the turning space. Opening up the seams is a good idea. Just make sure that they are still open, especially at the back. Oh, and here comes a pin or two, and my thing's closed again. There we go. Alright, so now we turn everything through this little hole. Go get the corners of the boxed bottom. There we go, coming through nice and crisply. You don't need a special turning tool for these though, your fingers should be enough. And when you've got that turned, just roll your fingers around the rim of the bag now, just to get it nice and flat. There we go. And when you've finished going around the bag, put your fingers in each side of this gap, pull it, and then you'll find that your seams will automatically find where they need to lie, and then finger press and pin. So now we're going to give it a really good press. I'm using a craft ironing board, but if you don't have one, you can roll up an old, well, any old t-shirt really. Just roll one up, stick it inside and use that. That's looking good. And then when you come to this part here, we can just press that. If you want to hand sew it, now's the time. If you want to top sew it, now's the time. But I'm going to hand sew mine. And even if you don't, if you turn over this top part, the little roll, I've noticed that on a lot of my makes of this, let's get that out of the way, a lot of my makes of this, you can't tell that it's actually not sewn at all, so you might even just want to skip the step, to be honest. All right, so there we have your Ellis storage bag. And if you want to send these as a gift in the post, or you want to sell them at a craft fair, these are perfect because they fold completely flat.